Hey, welcome to Love and Liberate. I'm Emilie, your host. I'm a self-leadership coach, embodiment teacher, artist, and an activist for love. Now, I don't mean the fluffy kind of love. I'm talking about the real, the raw, confronting kind of love, the kind that cracks you wide open and liberates you, creating a deeper understanding of yourself and the world around you. Because that is what I believe life truly is about. So through personal stories and inspiring, soul-stirring conversations on all things healing, embodiment, and spirituality, I'll help you navigate the good, the bad, and the ugly with tangible tools, fresh perspectives, and of course, a truckload of love. Here's to loving and liberating, one heart at a time. Hey lovers! Welcome back to the pod. I am going to talk about road rage today. Why road rage though? Because we all have it. Even if it's not you personally suffering from the, I want to say disease, but let's say the symptoms. Because I do think road rage is an actual symptom of something deeper that we're going to dive in later. So maybe you're not the one suffering from it, but maybe your friend, your partner, your parent is, or your kid. And I have a few theories. They're not backed by science, but they are backed by a lot of experience as a human. And I just think it's a fresh perspective on humanity. I think what happens in the car, in traffic, on the streets, I think is a beautiful metaphor for what is actually happening in society. So that's the huge leap that I'm going to make in this episode. And I highly recommend you stay with it because it's very refreshing. It's interesting. And it might just blow your mind. Shall we then? So road rage, why do I want to talk about road rage? Because I have been living a little bit off the grid for a few years and I'm returning to city life. And I'm like, what the bleep is going on? And I'm not talking about other people, folks. I'm talking about me. I'm like, what is this capsule living inside of me with this very tender membrane that just like so easily pops and just fuels my blood and my body with chemicals of rage. It's insane. Oh my God. How have you guys been doing this life all this time? I can't believe it. But, you know, here I am and I have to deal with it. So the way I deal with things is I try to make sense of things. I try to look for, reasons, patterns, connections. And so that's what I'm going to do today in this episode about road rage, because I think it's actually a very beautiful metaphor for humankind. And I'm going to explain why. All the different things that I'm seeing happening in myself and in others and in this, traffic situation, I think is something that we're dealing with on a greater scale. I think that the psychology of one little human being in their tiny tin can, driving, needing to go somewhere, having a goal, having a plan, having a mission, but then constantly being bothered by all these other tin cans that are, conducted by other humans is just so frustrating. Because we have this beautiful, endearing, disarming idea that we want to go there, so we're going to go there. And we believe in straight lines. And that goes for what we want in life, and that goes for what we want in traffic. the light's green. We want to go, 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 go. Everybody move. How is there a passenger? Like, how is there somebody crossing the street right now? Why is the biker not in its lane? Why is this? There's so many other elements that come to play in traffic, like in life. But in traffic, it's all visible. In traffic, you can see all the different elements. They are physical form. You can yell at them. They have faces if you bother looking at them. And you can make those faces the root of all evil. So that's how we live. That's how we do life, Only in traffic, like I said, we have the physical form we can project everything onto. And when we're not in traffic and we're just going about our lives, then we will find other reasons and faces and people and things to blame for things not going our way. But that's just the nature of how we try to regulate and cope with things, We're always looking for the bad guy or the bad thing outside of ourselves. Not only the bad guy or the bad thing, we're always looking to project the bad thing that is inside of us onto other people or things outside of us. Am I making sense? Or am I making you uncomfortable? Because if you're in a car, you know where you want to go, and the person in front of you is just not going as fast as you want them to go. That's just life. Life happening right there. That's your kid needing to get dressed in the morning and not putting on their pants. Or that's your colleague having different priorities for the project that you think should be going this way or that way or such and so. It's endless. But these things that happen in traffic, they are all beautiful metaphors of how we function in life. So that's the bigger metaphor. Now let's zoom in a little bit. So the first element of the metaphor is how we believe that life should go in a straight line and how we think that if we have that goal, that we can make a straight line, and everything that is causing that straight line not to be a straight line is causing frustration. Unless you are a very enlightened human. In which case, I celebrate you and I salute you. Okay? And then I did a little Googling. And there's this thing called hostile attribution bias. And that's an actual official term. And it means that when you are experiencing something outside of you, like there's behavior outside of you, somebody doing something, and you are interpreting their behavior as hostile or like on purpose to annoy you, even when it's just super neutral or super coincidental. Recognize much? So what happens is your car kind of becomes a shield, it's like this little moving bubble where you kind of forget that you're still part of a social field, of a greater field. And then hostile attribution bias kicks in. Like all of a sudden, somebody cutting you off, it's not just another human making a mistake, but it's a personal attack on you because they're trying to get at you, like they want to annoy you. And that's so funny because 99% of people in traffic are just as selfish and self-centered as you are. Like, chances are that they are as frustrated as you are at the person in front of them, So it's just such a beautiful metaphor of how our human brain works, like applying everything that happens around them to them, like believing that it's about you all the time, believing that when somebody does something, well, That's intentional, and that's because they want to get at you. And that's another piece where you can mirror yourself, because I don't think everybody has this in great capacity. Like, that's definitely something that I suffer a lot less from, because that's not part of my worldview, so to say. Like, I really believe that people mean well, try well, do well, best way they can. But then, sometimes you interpret people's behavior. Not sometimes. You always interpret people's behavior accordingly to your worldview. So the car, in that sense, and traffic, is a very interesting, let's say, laboratory for you to explore. Where are you at? What are you believing about the world? How are you projecting and responding to the world around you? And what are you projecting onto the world around you? Because 99% of what's happening in the car is just you dealing with you, And that's just a hard-ass truth. And I guess that's why road rage is such a thing, and people getting aggressive in their cars and shouting and screaming, because that's just an honest expression of a human in some kind of safe bubble expressing themselves, It's just a mirror of where a human is at and how a human is relating themselves to the world around them and projecting themselves in that world, So, again, using the car as like a laboratory or like an investigative place where you can take stock of where are you with yourself and with the world around you. It's an interesting exercise. And then there's another thing, which is called the shield effect. And it means that when you're inside a car, people, we feel anonymous, we're protected, and we feel like we're shielded, like in your bubble. And this distance that you feel between yourself and the other humans around you, it kind of lowers the empathy, and it tends to remove even social inhibition. So what's happening is you're no longer yelling at a person when you're going crazy in the car. You're actually yelling at a car, at like an anonymous shield, an anonymous thing that you can just wildly project onto whatever you want. And this reminds me of one of my favorite humans on the bloody planet, Brené Brown. She always says, it's hard to hate up close. Brené Brown is an amazing researcher and storyteller who studies courage and vulnerability and shame. I mean, if you don't know her, you gotta just like pause the pod to Google her and to buy one of her books, doesn't matter which one, or just find a TED Talk of hers, because she's amazing. Anyway, it's hard to hate up close. That's what she says. And I think that is just the most true and amazing thing. And I really try to live by that concept. Like when I'm walking down the street, when I see someone, interact with someone, I'm always really fully aware of the fact that this is a full human that has a full experience and an entire life, and that it is in front of me, and that I'm honoring it, and that I'm seeing it and receiving it, Not to say that I'm going deep into every encounter, but I think losing that sense of this is a human is really what is causing our world to kind of like go bonkers, because we no longer see a person of a certain religious background or with a certain political view, or, coming from a certain country. We don't see them as equally human and equally valuable and equally real as we see ourselves and the people around us, like family and friends. And that's crazy. For example, when you're talking to somebody from a call center, or, somebody behind some kind of desk in some kind of bureaucratic situation that you really don't want to be in, that person who's serving you or helping you is also a human, flesh and blood. They breathe, they feel, they have desires, they have dreams for themselves, they have shame, they have, like there's so much in every human happening all the time. Not that we have to walk around the world constantly feeling every single thing, but I do think that just a tatsy-watsy more awareness around the fact that every single one around you is a living, breathing, full human just like you would help the world just like, not a tiny bit, like a truckload. Like, I guess it could probably be one of the great answers to all of the great problems. Capital G, capital A. I mean, just throwing some ideas in here. But this concept, the shield effect, of you no longer seeing the other person as an actual human, I think it's a dangerous one. And, track yourself. Where do you shield effect yourself in the world? Where do you forget that it's a human and not a machine? And how can you maybe, find some more empathy, some more softness, a little bit more awareness around the fact that they too are humans, even though they're in a serving position or in a very opposite belief system than you are. They still poo. They still love. They still suffer from heartbreak. They still want to be loved by their parents. They still want mommy to say that they love them. They still want daddy to be proud, That's Bert from call center XYZ. He just loves a warm sausage sandwich. I don't know whether Bert really likes that, but I do think it's really important to still see all the tiny little human things to everyone, And it's also fun because sometimes I'm just like, I have my creative brain on and I go down the street and I see people and I just attribute things to them, like I'd be like, oh, this one's Jeff, and Jeff really loves to have slow sex in the morning. Or this is Mandy, and Mandy, she secretly loves lollipops and she also keeps them in the glove box of her car. I don't know. Or that's Mark. And Mark, he feels actually really lonely and he doesn't know how to tell people that he needs comfort or company. The world is full of that. I'm not saying that you need to walk around and have these ideas about people or, fantasize or I don't know. What am I doing really? But I do believe that these little, very tiny, beautiful, specific things about humans, they make humans so endearing, so disarming, so lovingly close to all of us, I don't know. I'm just giving you options to play with. Antidotes to the shield effect. antidotes to apathy, which would be then the opposite of empathy, you know? And then there's another thing that happens, and it's called de-individuation, which basically is the concept where you lose your self-consciousness and your control, like the brakes, your normal regulation system in situations where you feel anonymous or, not recognizable. And that is something that happens online, and it's also something that happens in cars, You feel so anonymous, you feel so, you know, like nobody will ever know it's you, like a troll. You just feel free to rage all you want to rage. And that concept is another very dangerous but also interesting phenomenon, because that's only possible, I guess, if the other way around is also happening. And that was what we just discussed before, where you forget that the other person is also a human. So I guess they go both hand in hand. They're like buddies. They're like, I'll do apathy. Great. Then I'll do de-individuation. That's how I see it in my head. But no, seriously, if you have the capacity to forget that another person is an actual human, then it's probably easier for you to forget that you too are still a human and are still relatable and, to be held accountable in situations. So I have a funny story. I had a road rage moment. I mean, the streets in the place where I lived, it wasn't bad, but I didn't need a lot to. For me, I'm really sensitive to traffic, and that's another interesting thing that we could talk about. But let's just keep it here in this moment right now. I'm really sensitive to road rage, because I feel the car is a situation where, like, traffic is a situation where people can decide for me, and not having a sense of control in terms of how I do something or in what pace, or, that is just so triggering for me. Like, I need structure, but too much is just killing me. Anyway, so I'm in the car and I need to be somewhere fast, but I don't really remember why. I think it was a self-imposed rush that I was in. And maybe I was hungry even. I think I was hungry. So I'm driving and there's this car in front of me, and I'm like, okay, now we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. We can go. We can go. We can go. And all of a sudden, he stops. And he lets somebody get out of a parking spot, and I'm like, that's not even what you have to do. Like, you're actively choosing to let this person go before you, like, we could have just gone, we could have kept going. What are you doing? And so I'm like gesticulating. Is that how you say it? Like, I'm gesticulating. Anyway, I'm like waving my hands, like arms in the air, and I'm like, rah! I'm like also loud in my car. And all of a sudden, this guy, I can see him in the rear mirror, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Carl. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and I'm like, I feel so caught. Like, I feel so ashamed. I couldn't believe is this guy that I knew, and he couldn't believe me, and I couldn't believe that it was him in front of me, because I was so shamelessly raging at him, you know? It was so funny. Anyway, we kept the joke alive. But that was very like a sobering moment, because that was when I realized I don't think this whole road rage thing is super charming, like, and the thing was, it did give me a massive laugh, and that was actually the relief that I needed. So it also helped me to remind myself that when I'm that prone to road rage, that I really need to check in with myself and do something to, blow off some steam, clearly. So again, you know, can traffic be a barometer to your current mental state? I think that's an interesting little practice. Yeah, at least it is for me. It surely is for me. And then there's another aspect to traffic. And I had a conversation about this with my friend yesterday, even, where we admitted to each other that being in traffic jam is actually really triggering like, to panic. Like, it's really hard to be, especially in a tunnel, and to be in traffic jam and to feel that you can't escape. Now, I don't know whether that resonates with anybody, but again, for me, that's a huge thing in my life in general. One of my main fears is being stuck and not being able to get out. And that goes obviously for elevators and tunnels and stuff like that, but it also applies to other situations where a structure feels too suffocating, or where I feel that my agency is in jeopardy. Also, not too crazy, having experienced quite the shapes and colors of abuse, and not being able to get myself out of the situation at the time. So, yeah, check in with yourself. What else happens in the car, and how can you create a deeper understanding of yourself and your ways, and how can you also maybe, I want to say help yourself, but it can also be support yourself, or practice even, practice, use it as a little moment to practice what you want to expand, or what you want to, yeah, learn how to do better. And then there's another point that is really interesting. It's the feeling of territoriality and control. Like, subconsciously, when you're driving, let's say in the right lane or in the left lane, you kind of feel that's like your space. Like, it kind of subconsciously, secretly becomes personal territory. So even though it's like clearly not yours, and it's just everybody's road, and everybody's, right to drive there in within the rules, whichever way they want, still it kind of feels like somebody's invading your space. Even when they're not driving the way you want them to drive in your lane, or when they're wanting to come in your lane, you could like secretly feel territorial about it and be like, "Hey, move!" or "Don't do it like this," or "What's your problem?" Or, like, I don't know, it triggers some kind of primal response, like the sense of, some kind of loss of control, or some sense of threat or invasion, really. Which is hilarious, how fast we make something our own. Like, when you're in a bar and somebody asks, "Sorry, can I use this chair?" And you're like, yeah, okay. Or you're in a bus and somebody wants to come and sit next to you, and you're like, damn it, that's my seat, my free seat that I wanted next to me. Or yeah, how easy you're to say, that's my seat. No, it was never yours, It really was never yours. You never bought the seat. You just bought a ticket to the bus, or you just ordered a beer and you went and sat there. It's not yours. The only thing that's yours, really, is the responsibility you have over the way you behave and the control that you can exert over your impulses and the way you regulate. And that's yours. But everything else is always borrowed. And that's something beautiful that also Jay Shetty speaks to. He's a former monk, and he has the podcast On Purpose. I'm sure you know it. And if you don't, it's good. He has interesting guests. He often reminds people that everything is borrowed. Even the car you buy, even everything is never truly yours. Nothing. Even your body is borrowed, because you're going to give it back to nature. And I think that's a beautiful conclusion to another beautiful episode of Love and Liberate. I'm super curious to know what this sparked inside of you, because maybe, I love to talk about a little bit more of the primal stuff, I love to hear how you get freaky behind the wheel, or situations that were really funny or really interesting, or maybe insights that you've gained through this episode. Maybe you're like, oh my God, epiphany. Or maybe it gives you tools to manage road rage better, or to, walk the streets with more empathy and a little bit less apathy, which I think is already a huge, accomplishment. If that's something that I could have created. Just a little bit more empathy. Anyway, I wish you a lovely rest of your day. I thank you dearly for listening. I'm back next week, as I am every week, and I love to hear from you. So share. DM me on Instagram, send me an email at love@emilieIris.com, or, send me a pigeon. Hope to have you back next week. Here's to loving and liberating, one heart at a time.